I remember
Yeah,
saying this. I remember Michael like way obviously like not getting too specific in committee
yeah,
chats, but I do remember like back in the day when we were discussing about putting Spellseeker to one, and I'd said, Michael, I'm just not seeing it. Like they can counter the Spellseeker, they can also kill the Spellseeker, or they can counter the Ephemerate, or they can graveyard remove the Time. Or I was like, every axis of interaction
yeah.
gets this
Just
thing. Like
every
how
single
will it
thing
win?
that anything your opponent could possibly have, interact.
Yeah. Well, then in which case, like, how does the deck overcome that kind of like natural obstacle of it being vulnerable kind of at every axis?
You jam
Yeah. So
main
there's
board
there's
Veil or Summer is what you do.
Yeah.
yeah, literally, yeah.
7 million.
Seven.
7 you.
Seven.
7. 7.
7 Point Highlander. Hello and welcome to 7 Point Cast. My name is Liam and I'm joined by my co-host Mouse.
Hey everyone, very excited for this season finale.
That's right. At the end of the most recent episode on Blue Moon, we cryptically teased that the finale of season 2 will include a double surprise. And there are some of you who guessed correctly at the Canberra Weeklies. Suggested to me that there would be 2 committee members on this podcast. And today I'm so happy that Michael Billinghurst is with us.
Man.
Um,
Huzzah.
so, yeah, so Michael, everyone knows you're on the committee, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as a Magic player and how you got into the format?
So I started playing Magic, I think 2012. Learned to play at the first PAX, I think it was 2012. And then, like, as a uni student does, got very involved very quickly. Spent all my spare hours hanging out at the local game store. Got into competitive play, got into playing standard. But I was fortunate that my local game store had probably, I think, the time the biggest Highlander scene was the Melbourne Leagues. And so, I'd be sitting in the game store between uni lectures or whatever, and I'd see people that I knew playing cards I'd never seen before. And so I sat down to, like, with them and like, explain to me what is going on. Why are we casting these cards I've never heard of? How is there an ancestral recall on the table? And they explained to me about the format, and I think I picked it up basically immediately. The leagues were proxy friendly at the time, so I just grabbed a list off someone and joined up with the next league, and I think I played those leagues until they died many years later. But I started out playing Blue Moon. It was that I could get access to when I wanted to play tournaments. And I liked control decks, and then I've been, I think, super heavily involved in the format ever since.
And on the in the Discord, your name is Michael-Esperguy. What's the story behind that?
I'm an infamous Esper player, to the point I gotta play Esper control even when it's bad. I think for a while I played Esper of all sorts in Highlander, although less so recently. I think I played Esper Tempo to a top 8 at CanCon in a metagame where no one else believed that deck existed, because it didn't. As well as Esper Control and Mod and all sorts of things. So for a while I had a joke of like just asking what the least bad Esper deck is, because that's probably what I'm playing. But I since fell in love with a different archetype, which I think we're talking about today.
And like when with 2012, I'm trying to remember what sets was that when like Esper Stoneblade was a big thing, or had we already moved on to
No,
like
just
by then?
after my first competitive deck was Blue White Sphinx Revelation.
Oh yeah, Sphinx's Revelation, what a classic.
What a classic!
I
I
actually
loved the shit
still
out of that
think
deck, and I tried to recapture that high for years afterwards.
I still think maybe there's a chance. I have played Sphinx's Revelation in Highlander before, and it's not as bad as you might think.
I've
um,
also cast that card in Highlander, I think this year, and it was fine.
yeah, it's like if you can get to the mana, it's like the
Yeah,
only card you want to see.
yeah. Jeskai Revelation has possibly killed Sphinx's Revelation for a while.
Oh,
It is
true.
a much more rewarding way to spend 7 mana it is speed.
Yeah, that's true. That's true as well. And if you want to be like a sorcery baller, Cruel Ultimatum is still on the on the table.
Yeah, another much loved card, although a little bit before my time.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so yeah, you were in Sphinx's Revelation standard to begin with. I do remember those days, and they were very fun. Were you like on the like Elixir of Immortality, like true
Yeah,
legit stuff? Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Killing my opponent was off the table.
yeah. Right. Well, look, today, and this is the other reason, which, for those who are like, oh, it's two committee members, right? The other surprise is that I think it's the first time we've done a second look at an archetype. Is that right?
Well, only in season 2. We're all doing firsts. All of our episodes are firsts.
Yeah, but what I mean by that is our first episode of season 1 was on walks, and now this is also on walks, where we haven't had an archetype double before.
Oh, that's true, yeah. And in the original Walks episode, a bit tongue-in-cheek, it was Walks asterisk, because we interviewed Jordan from Canberra, who is like one of the, like there are a large number of, well, relatively large number of Walks players in Melbourne, and I think just Jordan in Canberra. And he has like some different opinions on cards that goes into the Walks deck, so we put a little asterisk next to it. But given the variation in the Walks archetype in recent times, I think it probably deserves a double asterisk today as well.
It's true. There's a lot of difference in what people are playing at the moment, which is cool.
But despite
Well, yeah,
those...
take us through the deck, Michael. Like, what makes a walks deck a walks deck?
Yeah, okay. So the simplest thing is you're trying to combo. And the combo you're trying to set up is Time Walk, and then a way to recur it infinitely. The easiest way to do that is Eternal Witness and Ephemerate. But you just some way to regrow it, and then some way to regrow both your regrowth and the Time Walk every turn. So the combo you normally do is you'll cast Time Walk, cast Eternal Witness, you'll get back Time Walk, you'll cast Ephemerate, target Eternal Witness, get back your Time Walk, go to your upkeep, Ephemerate Eternal Witness with the rebound, pick up the Ephemerate again, you're back where you started. And that lets you take all the turns. And to help you out with that, you have Spellseeker, which can get Ephemerate, and then get Ephemerated to go and get Time Walk. And then with the Rebound, you can use the Ephemerate to go and get Eternal Witness in some way. There are a bunch of ways to achieve that, but one of the ways. The example is Neoform or Green Sun Zenith or something.
Yeah, Neoform's the most popular one, but it's not necessary, hey, because you could just get Green Suns and Green Suns for the Eternal Witness.
Or an Ellen Amory's Call or Worldly Tutor. There's all sorts of options.
Right. Well, why do people still play Neoform then? Because it seems like such a chronically bad card outside of this particular application, but all the other ones are like always good.
Yeah. So then the benefit of Neoform is that it's the least mana. If you're
Right.
trying to do it all in one turn, you go Spellseeker and then Ephemerate and then Time Walk, and that's 6 mana. And then you can untap again, and you need to then but you get to cast the Ephemerate for free, but then you need to go cast the Time Walk and the Ephemerate again. And however you're getting Eternal Witness. Neoform is only 2 mana to get Timeless Witness. If you want to do Green Sun, that's 4 for Eternal Witness, so you'll need 7 mana. Ellen Amory's Call will be 8 mana total. And so if you're trying to set up quick kill lines, particularly if you want to do it not with 6 mana, with Spellseeker with multiple turns, giving you options that cost less mana total, can be very powerful. It can be easier to set up these kills without having to have a lot of lands and mana dogs in play.
Yeah. And look, the other question I had about kind of the core of it is, in my very, very early memories of Highlander, I remember seeing decks which did things like play, like Garuk Wild Speaker and untap 2 lands, play Time Walk, and then, use the Overrun ability immediately, or sometimes then play Eternal Witness and Time Walk, and usually Garruk would mean that you have the mana to find, Archaeomancer Time Walk, for example. Would you consider these walks decks, or were these decks which were just time walking for value? Did this list exist before Ephemerate, or did it really start with the printing of Ephemerate?
I think Ephemerate really created it. I think what I would say was the first proto walks deck was GP Brisbane 2019. Someone else to check that for me. Where a player, also by the name of Michael, whose last name I can't remember, I apologize, top 8'd that event with Eternal Command style, 8th of Isle Eternal Witness Ephemerate deck that I believe was playing Time Walk, and he was playing a pure combo version of the deck. And I wasn't playing that event, but I was at the GP because it was on the Sunday and I was playing day 2. But I remember walking past like multiple times and seeing this like collection of cards that were really cool on a table, and then coming back at 7 o'clock and seeing those cards in the top 8 and being like, that looks cool, how do I do that?
Right. So
and they've actually got that list.
Does that mean that there's an anonymous Michael out there who's the true OG Walker?
Maybe, yeah. I never saw the actual list. I just saw like the idea of the cards and was like, oh, there's got to be something there. And then I think maybe 8 months later was when because we went into COVID just after that, and we like didn't get to play a lot of Magic, and then we had the first the Canberra MTGO League. Oh, sorry, Webcam League, where I got to like experiment with these cards that I didn't own because I didn't have access to a Time Walk reliably, and so I got to like proxy up a Time Walk and play a bunch of different versions and experiment with what worked. And I think you can probably go and find those. I don't have copies of them anymore, but you can find the original lists. And I played some utter nonsense trying to get this to work.
Well, I mean, look, first is paging all anonymous Michaels out there. If you are the original Walker, make yourself known in the comments so we can,
I think we have deck lists from that event, so somewhere someone does. So I'm sure we can find it.
We would need to get a third asterisk on here.
Yeah. And look, the other thing as well, like one of the things I've noticed whenever you talk about walks is that you're always like, oh, we, like we put in all this testing. Like, who is the we? Because I think a lot of people associate the deck with you, but who is the team? Who is the brains trust behind
So it's like, you see what's on the playlist on our shirts is that we have the blue Elemental Blasters, but a subset of that is myself, Graham, JD, and sometimes Michael Leslie, and Isaac sometimes, and Mulch sometimes, who have all played the deck at various times, and so when we're preparing for an event, some number of us are usually playing the deck or testing the deck or considering the deck. And I think before every CanCon, for example, there's probably like a 10,000 message group chat while we discuss exactly which sideboard cards we want to play and how we're going to build the deck and how we're going to approach matchups. So you'll see them playing it at a bunch of events too. I think all of them have played it semi-recently.
This might be a hard or overly specific question, but aside from the, kind of cliches of, put more ideas, more brains together, get more ideas, blah, 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 blah. Can you think of like the most meaningful insight that came from a team member, which really kind of like radically changed the decision you were going to make about the deck? Or do you know what I mean? Like what was the most incisive piece of feedback?
That's hard. I think part of it is like, one of the big things in it is like, they just try cards I never would. One of the biggest changes to the deck went from being like a good deck to a really strong deck was when we started playing cards that could attack. One of Graham's early innovations was to take this cool mid-range combo deck that I had assembled and just put Tarmogoyf in it. It's like, Tarmogoyf's a good card, and we can just attack our opponents. And if you play a Tarmogoyf and then a Time Walk, you'll probably just kill them. And I was like, no, doesn't help us combo. Like, I can get behind Territorial Kavu. That card helps me combo by looting. Tarmogoyf's not allowed. And turns out Tarmogoyf is really good sometimes.
Yeah. Just the big, like the scavenging ooze type thing, just like the big dude.
Yeah, just like, and like having people who think about it differently can challenge the assumptions that you've made in that regard. Like, I had a vision of the deck doing one thing, and Graham and also JD have been like, well, but we could do something else. It doesn't have to be that way. And that's really helpful to have that discussion, particularly if they're willing to defend it and argue with me about my strong opinions.
Yeah,
which they are.
All right. Well, do we want to have a look at maybe some historical lists, and you can kind of walk us through, how the deck has changed over time?
Yeah. So I think walks is, as I said, like the core of the deck is pretty small. It's like 4 cards, some shooters, some extra backup effects. I think Timeless Witness is an example of a card that can help out a lot. Before that, we played a K-Mans before it got printed. But it's like, you only need maybe 10 non-land cards to like kind of fill the core. And then you have a lot of space left to play other stuff. And then so figuring out what that other stuff is hard, and it's kind of changed over time, both with printings and pointings. I think the biggest journey of the deck has been like, what else are we doing with our deck? So like the very early versions were pure combo or like value combo, and was playing all sorts of elvish visionary type stick, and just trying to like, well, if we block and draw cards, eventually we'll combo kill people. And then they keep printing good cards, and if you spend the time to test the new good cards, you can find ways to fit them in. And so like early on we had Ren and 6. I think it was printed like probably before I started testing the deck, but we figured out that it was good. And we played that for a while, and Oko, and then they printed I can't remember what had happened, but we got like Territorial Carver and Morlock, and now we had some really good aggressive 2-drops to play in our deck to let us leverage the tempo that we're getting from our Mana Dorks rather than just like being a combo deck. Then we got Minsk and Boo, and suddenly we had the best top end to go alongside our Omnath to spend all our mana. And these cards come and they go, or they get pointed, but it lets us change how we approach the deck. So if you can look back. I think if you look at my Moxfield or in the show notes, we'll have a bunch of historical lists in various places. But you can look like the deck. The core of the deck hasn't changed that much, but the cards around it change a lot. Part of it is pointing. I think in 2023, I think it was at CanCon, played a deck that was now 16 points because we got to play all of these cards and some. But it's one of the challenges with any archetype Highlander like this is like, you want to stick to the same core archetype, that's okay, but you need to be willing to adapt and change both to the metagame and how you're attacking it, but also to the points list and to the new cards that get printed that may obsolete some of the old ones you've got.
So one of the things which I noticed just looking at this history lesson slide, so for those who can't see it, like I'm seeing cards like Nadu, Ren and 6, White Plume Adventurer, Minsk and Boo, Fable, Karvu, Morlock, Omnath. A lot of them have these kind of, let's say just like once per turn effects, which I imagine really lean in to the strength of just the value Time Walk, like the not comboing one. Like obviously Planeswalker's another activation, Saga's another chapter, the Initiative another room. Like there are some cards which I know, for example, you're currently on black ones, on like a black walks list. There are some cards I'm wondering if they've been tested. Like Kaito, for example, is a very strong black-based Planeswalker, which draws a card. You've got like black initiative cards like the Ravenloft Adventurer, and you've even got like Urza's Saga potentially could just be like a generic saga which might benefit from a Time Walk just zooming through. Have any of these, has there been any, I guess, like special consideration to be like, well, we've definitely got to test all the walkers and all the initiative cards and all the sagas because of the value they get out of the Time Walk? Or are the cards, do they just need to be, I guess, more just like powerful in a vacuum?
I think synergy is like one of the real bonds. Like your deck is really doing like two core things. One is you're trying to tutor for and cast Time Walk. Another one is you're trying to tutor for and cast Ephemerate. Or cards that do that thing. And so enter the battlefield effects you can rebuy to make Ephemerate do something when you're not comboing are really good. Similarly, Planeswalkers or like powerful tap effects that you can reuse once, that are good when you reuse them once. Really good, like Fable's really good, but if you get to like Fable and then untap and then cast Time Walk and skip to the bit where you have the guy, that's awesome, and you get the 2 treasures and it's just like unreal. Similarly, like Minsk and Boo is really good, but even like using Time Walk as a ramp spell and casting Minsk and Boo on turn 3, or going from like, oh well, you killed Boo, but I'm gonna untap and you're still gonna take 11 because I got this Time Walk. And like finding ways to do that. Like Kaido's an awesome example. We haven't tested Kaido, or at least I haven't. Other people may have. But like it synergizes with both those things. It helps you pick up into the battlefield effects, and it synergizes well with the Time Walk. So maybe that has a really good home there as a card that could be like a powerful 3-mana thing to do if you want that. Yeah, the other thing like Saga is interesting, although unfortunately, colorless lands are hard in your 4-color combo deck. And you don't have a lot of points to play with, so you have to really like that. Now that spells like Time Walk are 6 points between them, that last slot is under a lot of tension.
And as a play pattern thing, when you've got these cards, like it's an obvious thing if you've got Minsk and Boo to snap off a Time Walk and ruin your opponent's day. But are you playing the Time Walk proactively like that, or are you kind of saving it back for when you can do a big powerful turn or execute the combo?
I think you want to try and get something out of it. I think because you're a deck that's really built to both abuse the Time Walk as a combo, but also just in general to pressure your opponent's mana. Like, you're a mana dork deck with a bunch of cheap spells and some powerful threats. You really want to like get on the board quickly, and so anytime you can like cast a turn 2 Time Walk into some big 3-drop, that's usually worth it. You know, that's you're effectively playing Mox Sapphire there, and that's good enough if at least Time Walk in the graveyard.
Right, but you're not just playing Time Walk as Explorer unless you've got something to cast as a follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got 4 lands in your hand, then maybe you're doing that anyway because you got to do something. But if you've got a nice 2-drop, 3-drop curve, you can just do that and see how it plays out. But
I am really curious. Has there been any testing with the Black Initiative cards? Not that I necessarily want to encourage more initiative into the format, but it just seems like such a natural home for like, you know, an Ephemerate deck and an extra turns deck and a deck with like a lot of ramp and mana dorks. Do you know what I mean? Like, has that been explored?
it hasn't, only because we haven't really wanted 4-drops.
Right.
So I think the way that the Black Initiative, the Black Time Walk deck was built up till, you know, like March, whatever, we're testing for CanCon, we're like, we want a 4-drop. You know, I think even at CanCon, I think I wasn't playing Birthing Pod and was playing Jace instead, although I can't remember.
Yeah, I thought that was on the list, yeah. And Sheldred.
Yeah, Sheldred, yeah, sorry. So it's like, you didn't want a lot of 4-drops, you wanted 4-drops to have like really immediate impact, but also the games where you get to be ahead on board when you cast your 4-drops are games you're already winning a lot of the time. And so we wanted our 4-drops to be able to like stabilize the board, to be able to win at parity on their own. And the initial creatures don't really do that. They like slam the door shut. And because you're playing a lot of interaction and some, you know, dorky creatures and Eternal Witnesses, if you like play a turn 3 Eternal Witness and then a turn 4 initiative creature, you're just not getting the initiative back ever again.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So, and that's kind of indicative why the only 4-drops on this slide are Minskamu and Omnath, which are like exceptional at just winning, like, you know, playing Omnath, obviously the life gain and the extra mana on the defense can be like a big swinger, and Minskamu obviously it speaks for itself. It's 2 points for a reason. Like, that's why these are the only 4-drops on this one.
Yeah, it's like you need your 4-drops to be good often, because so many of your games end up being like you're committing mana dorks and removal spells, and then you have 1 or 2 cards left to do stuff for you, and you need them to really do things.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, let's Liam, unless you've got anything else, do we want to hit up the next slide?
Yep. Next slide. Ye Olden Walks. So
this Michael, take us back through the past.
Oh man, I think this is from 2020. I dredged this deck list up for my Mox Field. It's one of the old versions I was playing in the league. You can see, like, you know, there's still the same core there. We have Eternal Witness. I believe this is before Timeless Witness is printed, and so I think, yeah. So we have an Archaeomancer there at the bottom, doing its best Timeless Witness impression, and then what we want the rest is are really unclear. I think I'm playing more mana dorks than I settled on the end, and there's not really a lot going on other than the combo. You know, we have Cryptic Command as a backup combo plan. We have like main deck Veil of Summer to try and protect our combo from counter spells. We have Seagate Stormcaller to help us like find alternate semi combos with Time Walk, although it's not really a combo. And then there's just like no threats, you know, like there's an Oko and an Uro, and outside of that, we're probably not killing our opponent.
Yeah, I mean, but maybe, right? Like, there are still a lot of just like bodies with power and toughness, and, you know, like I could imagine a Teferi bounce your dude, Palace Scala remove your dude, and just tempoing them out. Like that's surely.
Yeah, you could definitely get them, but there's not really a mid-range plan. You know, like we're accruing value. And the games you're not comboing people are the games where you have valued so hard that your 2-1 can get in there.
Yeah, okay.
And
how often does that happen? Like, does the Walks deck, like, I guess in its current form, win all of the time with Time Walk, or is the value
No.
then, yeah, like how often is each happening?
I would say it's pretty close to 50-50. I think
Okay.
there's a lot of games where both are relevant. Like you start pressuring them, which forces your opponent to do some stuff on turn 5 to try and win the fair game, and then you can untap and kill them. Or you do the reverse, where like you go and get your combo piece with Spellseeker, and then you sit there with an ephemerate in your hand for the whole game while you attack them with your creature, and your opponent is kind of stuck making a choice,
Hmm.
and eventually has to spew a removal spell somewhere else, and you can get them. But I think it's pretty close to 50-50. I think maybe the versions from like CanCon where I was playing like Netherglyph and all the discard spells tended more to kill my opponent in combat, and the versions that are playing more, Elvish Visionaries tend to kill more combo, but it's pretty close to 50-50.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And like, do you reckon that the obviously it seems like the conclusion you guys have landed on is that to echo the comment about Graham and Tarmogoyf and stuff, that the more combat viable decks you think are currently the better ones.
I think so. I'm always experimenting with different versions. I think if the Melbourne locals will know that I turn up to every third event with some strange variant of Time Walk combo and see how it goes. And I think it depends what you're trying to beat. And at the moment, if you're worried about fast combo and about Grixis, trying to combo kill those decks is hard, at least quickly enough. Whereas combining some disruption and some aggressive creatures and a Time Walk works pretty well.
I do really love, in some of the most recent podcasts, the one we did with Itai on Jeskai Control, and most recently with Ben on Blue Moon, there was some umming and ahhing about the quote-unquote combo of Cryptic Command and Mystic Sanctuary. And I know that the format used to be slower, blah, 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 but it is outrageous to me that you had Cryptic Command and Archaeomancer as this 8-mana combo every turn just to try and stall out the opponent to win the game. I absolutely love it.
Oh, this deck was so cool. It was surprisingly good too. I think this is an early version and went through a lot of iterations, but yeah, it's like it actually kind of worked. It was great.
And speaking of a card that might be surprisingly good, for those who can't see the screen, hiding in the creatures is Fibblethip the Lost.
Yeah.
What is that card doing in here, man?
Oh, okay. Well, so the first thing is, this deck loves Elvish Visionaries. You have a bunch of ways to rebuy them. You have Birthing Pod, you have Neoform, so you just want to like get creatures into play that do stuff. On the other hand, you also are a Neoform Birthing Pod deck, and Fibblethip has this like secret hidden text that never comes up, which says if it enters from your library, you draw 2 cards. And so pretty often in this version of and like the heavy creature version that I can play, is you'll just like pot an elf into a Fibblethip and draw 2 cards, and then untap, and if the Fibblethip's still in play, you'll just pot it again. It'll be great.
Yep.
Or you'll pick it up with the Teferi. I think that works. I don't know the text of Fibblethip. I think it lets you do that. Or like you just want an extra creature in play, and so you just need to have every possible Elvish Visionary. For some of the modern, it still shows up in some versions I play now because it works so nicely with Force of Negation and Flare of Denial. Where if you want to try and play every single blue Elvish Visionary, there are a lot of them now, and so you can play every single blue Elvish Visionary and do some stuff.
Yeah, there's like Pond Prophet and stuff as well, and I guess the Thundertrap Trainer probably doesn't do it because you've got so many creatures, but there are a lot of them.
But
Yeah.
I know that it was a while ago, but why didn't Baleful Strix qualify at the time? Perhaps you could have preempted the whole shift into black 5 years ago.
Yeah, so I think I think Baleful Strix, I wrote this version, but I tested out black because it was nice. But the mana was like hard, and it wasn't worth it for just one card at the time. And so you probably would have played with Baleful Strix for a bit until I figured out that you could splash a 4th color, and then I immediately splashed red because Omnath and Red 6 are really good.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's funny like when you kind of open the discussion with, oh, the core of this deck is really small, so you can basically do anything you want. Immediately, like the brewer's instinct in my brain like explodes, and I'm like looking at a
Yep.
deck like this, and I'm like, oh, Birthing Pod, and I'm like, have you guys tested anything with like Deceiver Exarch and maybe Splinter Twin as a second combo? Because this what's the cat, the one which bounces
Yes,
the
Sahili and Felidar Guardian, yeah.
yeah, like has there ever been any of those like I guess dual combo-y kind of builds because they both lean into the like, I want lots of
Yeah.
other visionary type stuff?
I think I tried with Restoration Angel Kikijiki as a pile, because Restoration Angel is like actually just pretty close to, oh, I guess at the time, maybe not so much now, but was pretty close to a good card face up, and Kikijiki is insane in your deck full of Elf Visionaries if you can resolve it just as a fair card. But it just like didn't really turn out that you wanted more combos, like because both parts of your combo are like extremely good cards on their own right, because in Time Walk and Ephemerate. You just want to be searching for one of those every time you tutor, and you want all your tutors to get one or the other. And if you decide you can't combo, that's okay. You can just get the really good fair card and keep going. And so there's not a lot of payoff for playing like alternate combos, because there's like you always switch tutors, and also your deck is like your main combo loses to every possible piece of interaction, so that you can't like sidestep it by playing a combo that doesn't get interacted with the same way, because it'll still be good against you.
I remember saying this. I remember Michael like way obviously like not getting too specific in committee chats, but I do remember like back in the day when we were discussing about putting Spellseeker to 1, and I'd said, Michael, I'm just not seeing it. Like they can counter the Spellseeker. They can also kill the Spellseeker, or they can counter the Ephemerate, or they can graveyard remove the Time War. I was like, every axis of interaction gets this thing.
Every single thing anything your opponent could possibly have, interact.
Yeah. Well, then in which case, like, how does the deck overcome that kind of like natural obstacle of it being vulnerable kind of at every axis?
You just main board Veil of Summer is what you do.
Yeah, literally, yeah. There's two plans. One is just wait, or play through it. Like you ephemerate a Spellseeker and they bolt it, and you're like, well, that's fine. I'll play my Eternal Witness and I'll pick up my ephemerate and we'll do it that way.
Yeah.
Just like present enough tries at it, the opponent runs out of stuff. And like back it up with protection and spell pierces and veils, or make them spend all their stuff elsewhere.
Yeah,
that's the Omnath version. Is like, yeah, I could kill you with the Spellseeker, but like this Minskamboo, that's also gonna kill you. And so I don't want to like throw resources at trying to ephemerate the Spellseeker because it might be bad, but I will happily cast Spellseeker, get ephemerate. And then put the ephemerate and this planes over there, and then do some other stuff. And if at any point you decide that you're not respecting ephemerate, then you will die.
And this is like one of those things. I think I've said this in other episodes before. It's like the quintessential mid-range combo hybrid plan is to just compel your opponent to deal with plan B. And the moment they like expend any resources in that direction, suddenly plan A, like a Jack in the Box, comes out, and it's like, oh crap, yeah.
But look at the sideboard of this deck, right? And like, there's 5 counter spells on a Glenalendra Archmage.
Yeah.
that was my plan.
Yeah.
But back when I'm going to mid-range threat.
Let's have a look at some other of these historical lists, because we've got a bunch of them.
Oh, this is the only one I put up on the screen.
Right. Okay.
So the next ones are more traditional walks. But before we move on, like looking at this list, it's like an optical illusion. It just keeps drawing you back in. Like you're playing Soul Herder in here. Oh my god.
That's a card near and dear to my heart. But once again, like if this is like the build of like, hey, what if I could play Soul Herder and Ephemerate and there's a Restoration Angel in here, but like Restoration Angel types effects and Birthing Pod, and just like every creature is also a spell, and I have Renegade Rallier, and I'm gonna neoform my stuff into more stuff, and I'm just gonna have a bunch of 2/1s in play, and that might be good, like please kill all my 2/1s and see how it goes. That's like the thesis of this deck, and I think you can still build versions of walks that do that. I think I was remembering Cloud is super exciting as a tool to do that with Skull Clamp. So you can Flare of Denial and Blue Idiots. Like there's tools there if you want to experiment. And I have been, but I haven't settled on a version that I love, and I can't convince my team to join me on that journey. So I'm flying solo on that one.
Well, having a look at some other lists, I obviously I've got them on the screen, but people can't see them. But I'll just give some of the cards which really stand out as why isn't this good enough anymore? / why was it good enough to make it in the first place? So
Yeah, sure.
in a 2020 list, I see there are 3 threats which jump out at me. There's Tireless Tracker, which I remember once upon a time was almost in every green deck, like Rug, Jun, stuff like that, but I don't see it so much anymore. There's Glory Bringer, and there's Titania, which I almost only really ever saw in Lands decks. Do you want to maybe give me like the idea between those 3 cards?
So Tile Tracker is gone just because it's been supplanted.
Right.
If you want a 3 power creature for 2 and a green that draws you cards when you play lands, we have that. It's Nissa.
Yeah.
It's much better.
That makes sense.
And it's like just a better version of that card. And Nissa's still great. If you can support it, if you're playing the elementals to support it, it's still great.
Mm-hmm.
Titania is more a product of its time. It's very expensive, but back in the day, I think Glorebringer as well. It's like this would have been, I suspect, in the heyday of Grixis.
Mm-hmm.
And so
What do you mean?
Titania...
Isn't that still today?
Yeah.
sure. Different Grixis, but yes. Yes. And so Titania was just a card that traded really well with Mag Angler and like Go for the Fruits. Where you'd always get a land and 2 5/3s, and they had to answer it, and it stabilized the board, and it was the best 5 to put into, and I think Glorybringer in there is also just serving its role as a 5 to put into, and it turns out that if you pay 3 red for a thing that deals 4 damage and leaves a threat behind, that's still really good. But we also have a better one.
Yeah, but it's Pyroglyph nowadays.
Pyroglyph or Fury, right?
Yeah.
And so having there was a real desire to have these big creature threats that could be removal spells. So you'll see Palace Jailer as well, a card that still sees some play, but was largely being supplanted by Solitude.
Okay.
It's you sort of have things to pot into, or Neoform 4, or Eladamri's Call 4 that could remove creatures. But we got some really good ones later on that have taken those slots.
Okay. Well then, what about some non-creature things I see in this deck? One is Court of Grace, which is definitely a card I don't really see much. And the other one, actually, I'll save the other one because it's part of maybe a bigger discussion.
Yep.
Is Court of Grace, is that just another threat which has been supplanted, or is it doing something unique?
It was just a threat that was impossible to remove at the time.
Okay.
Again, it's like Grixis literally could not beat that card.
Right.
And so,
unless they're the Monarch, I suppose, but yeah.
And if you look at this deck, it has a main deck Veil of Summer and a main deck Court of Grace, and those are sideboard cards that have swapped into the main because of a metagame call for this particular version.
Do you reckon that people should be packing some more Courts of Grace against Grixis nowadays, or is it?
It's not as good. I think 4-mana sorceries are much less impressive against Grixis. Their threats are so much cheaper and so much more aggressive that if you play a 4-mana sorcery that doesn't do anything, you might be dead before you get a spirit.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, we'll tamper down the excitement on the token players there. The other one I was going to ask is Regrowth, because this is a card which I think, I don't know, I guess the vintage cube mindset is you pick Time Walk, of course you snap up a Regrowth, this card's going to be amazing. And there's obviously now a new and improved Regrowth in Aurora Procession printed recently. What do you think of these cards? Do they belong in Walks decks as an automatic include? Is there a particular style of Walks decks which wants them? Tell me about it.
Okay. I think that the better a 4-mana Time Warp is, the better they are. And the more combo heavy you are, the better they are.
Right.
The problem that the rest suffer at the moment is just there's so much main deck graveyard hate that sometimes they'll just be dead. You'll draw it, but your opponent will have a Keen-Eyed Curator, and you'll just never be able to cast it. Or they'll have an Emperor of Bones, and you'll be able to cast it, but all the good cards will be gone.
Okay.
And so like that makes them a little bit less valuable. I think that Royal Precision in particular is still pretty playable because it does let you do interesting stuff around some graveyard hate, where you can like protect your Time Walk from inopportune times from getting caught. But it's just the less combo you are, the less you want to spend 2 mana doing nothing when you could spend 2 mana putting a threat in play, or killing your opponent's threat, or doing something that affects the board.
Yeah, that makes sense. Looking at another list now, I'm looking at the 4-color Ephemerate Walk combo. So this is, I guess, one of the... Oh, this is also an Omnath one, so it's also got red in it.
Yeah, I think it's been 2022, I guess?
Yeah, so it says last updated 3 years ago. So yep, 2022. We're seeing some other interesting cards here. I can see... Oh, right, so there's like a Stoneforge Mystic package. We've got Lion Sash, we've got the Reality Chip, which is, like, I guess, a nod to having extra turns. And you've got Skull Clamp. All of these cards are still legal, and they've also gotten Cloud recently. Is this a package which more people should be experimenting with?
I think so. I tried, I think just before I went to Chiba, so maybe a month ago, I tried a version that was like heavy ban, the light splash. I think I was splashing black lightly. There was like Skull Clamp, Stoneforge Mystic, Cloud, Skull Clamp, pre-war formal wear, and then I think I was playing G-Day as my last artifact because that's allowed now. And they were really good. Like Cloud getting Skull Clamp is awesome. Turns out that when your Harmonizers draws 4 cards, that's really good. And you get a Skull Clamp afterwards, which is awesome. And Cloud being able to present this threat of getting pre-war formal wear and just daring your opponent to kill it, because you'll go and get G-Day and Skull Clamp, is like amazing. Skull Clamp was really good the whole time. So I think it's like there's stuff there. G-Day still kills people. It's slow, but like, and a lot of time you'll play it and then not be able to attack with it, and it'll be sad. But like as a 4-drop that ends games, it does that.
Yeah, so, I guess like it really depends how creature heavy the meta is, right? Like if you're expecting to run into a lot of stuff, then but if it's all like storm and craziness, then
it's much worse there for sure. So I think like there's a lot of stuff you can experiment with, and I think part of it is like there's not that many people who have a Time Walk, and the people who do have versions that they like to be set on, or they turn it up and play it the big event with the version that they know, and then put it back in its box and leave it alone. I think there's so much unexplored stuff in this archetype that like it takes a while. And like before CanCon, when we sit down and come up with our version, and it can look vastly different to the previous versions like it did this year. It doesn't get a lot of exploration because I like playing a lot of other stuff, and so like I'll not play it for 6 months while I mess around with Grixis or Blue Moon or something, and then if there's only 5 pilots and 3 of them don't play it, then stuff gets missed.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got a local down in Wollongong who did an experimentation with like Yorion Time Walk, just like flickering all of the things. I mean, speaking of kind of like vastly different, I feel like the next 2 decks do really, they signify a particular epoch change in the philosophy, because all of these historical ones, they've got a lot of these like flicker-esque effects, right? Like the Coiling Oracles, the Fibble Thips, that Elvish Visionary type effects. Whereas when we move to 2023 and 2025, these decks are now looking way more aggressive. That's when I'm seeing less of the like Coiling Oracle, and in the red version I'm seeing like Morlock, Karvu, White Plume Adventurer. In the 25 one, it's the black one, Emperor of Bones, Baragwave. Like, I mean, I guess the 2 questions are: 1, was this like a really conscious choice to get more aggressive? And 2, do you think this is where the deck belongs? Like that, having that aggressive angle is now like a feature of the archetype?
I think it was a choice. I think Graham convinced me Tarmogoyf was good, and then subsequently I convinced him that Tarmogoyf was bad, but the idea of Tarmogoyf was good. But it was like once the quality of threats got higher and the ability to have cards that did both was there. You know, you had your White Plum Adventurer and your Furies and your Solitudes that like kind of worked with all the other parts, but also attacked really well. You got to like kind of have your cake and eat it too, and you didn't need to lean on your Elvish Visionaries because your creatures that you wanted to put in play kind of like, you know, your rule spells became creatures, and you could then like play to the board much more aggressively. And then like that kind of fell out a little bit with the fact that the 2023 deck is 16 points now, and you don't get to play Force of Will and Ren and 6 and Minsk and Boo and White Plum Adventurer and Mana Drain, and Fable. But that was a good time. That was fun. But it's, I think, kind of a metagame call. Like, you can do a lot of other stuff. You can go back to the Elvish Visionary things. But if you want to like the modern lists, the black, I think we actually have the list I played at CanCon 2015 loaded up. We'll see.
Well, I think the next slide is the Nadu walks from CanCon. Do we want to load that up?
Yeah, but like this version of the deck is like slanted much more aggressively. But part of that is just because we wanted to be able to beat the combo decks. You know, like we were really concerned about not so much Grixis, although a little bit, but much more about like Breach and Storm and the other decks like leveraging, you know, Demonic Council and the powerful effects like that, Flash as well, which had historically been like difficult matchups for walks because you can't interact that well off the board and you can't race them. And so we wanted to like lean really hard into actually trying to race them. And that means like playing Netherglyph and Keen-Eyed Curator and these cards that can clock pretty quickly, as well as just as much interaction that actually did stuff as we could.
Yeah, speaking of that, one of the things which I do notice about like this list is the interaction suite is actually pretty lean. Like, you know, we've got Inquisition and Thoughtseize, which obviously, you know, excellent, but it's not like it's the full Monty of like, I don't know, like Duress and Dreadfugue and everything. And we've also, like in the counterspell slot, we've got Mental Misstep and Drown on the lock, but again, like there's no evasive action, or Spell Pierce, which I feel like I see in a lot of walks lists. How much is, and on the other hand as well, there are some cards which are like, I guess I just call them a little like bit vulnerable, like Malevolent Rumble. It doesn't advance the board and it taps your mana out of interacting. Like how are these kind of decisions made? Is there like perhaps better to go all in on the digging effects, or more all in on the removal, or is having this fine balance, like, you know, like what I guess what's the logic behind it?
Yeah, so part of it is a lot of testing, but the driver is that there's actually like a lot of competing concerns, particularly in this deck, but in decks in general. You know, this deck is trying to leverage a bunch of different tools. You know, it's trying to cast Demonic Council, so you need to get Delirium every game. It's trying to use like this is actually cut Neoform, didn't I think? But anyway, but you're trying to do your Time War combo, so you need to have things to make your Ephemerate good. You need to play all the pieces that actually make the combo work. You're trying to attack, so you need a bunch of threats. So you have mana dorks, so you need ways to spend that mana proactively, so you're not like down a card that doesn't matter. And so you just like have all these pieces that kind of need to interact with each other. So you actually end up with very few flex slots once you start putting the pieces in your deck, you know?
Yeah, okay.
So like you know, we have Nadu, so we need to play Nadu enablers and tutors for the Nadu enablers, and then we need to play like Spring Heart, so we can consider playing Spring Heart, so we can combo. And like you end up with all these pieces for different plans, and then while they synergize together, you like have all these enables and all these pieces, and then you're like, well, I only have 7 slots left. How do I maximize that to achieve what I want?
I gotta ask though, if we're on the epoch of there are so little flex slots, how did Jace the Mind Sculptor make a comeback in 2025?
And don't forget, this was the deck that you started off by saying there's a far more aggressive slant.
Yeah, that's true.
It is. So no, it is. It's really funny. Jace made it in basically because Barragloif was really good.
Okay, yeah.
Is that we wanted a 4-drop that would like come down on its own board or off a mana dork and like win when you're ahead.
Yeah.
But also like give you time to catch up when you're behind. So we had Birthing Pod in that slot until like I think literally about 10 o'clock the night before. And we're like, Birthing Pod's kind of mid. You need to have a creature in play. It costs so much life. If you're behind at all, it doesn't do anything. It's only good when you're ahead. But for curve reasons, we want to have something in that slot that can win the game, and just like sitting there like we've done all this testing, and every card we can think of is bad. But if we like mentally play back those games, Jace would have been awesome in every spot. You know, it just lines up super well against the like Barragoyfs of the world, and the way that the games are playing out. And I was really happy with it for that event. I probably wouldn't play it today, but I think at that event it was really good.
It's funny actually. I think you've arrived at Jace the Mind Sculptor in this deck as exactly the same way that I arrived at Fall from Favor in Blue Moon in the same event. Yeah, it just very much felt like so many games came down to your opponents just resolving one big threat. And it's like, great, well, one big bounce spell or one tap enchantment, which then draws cards or whatever, is just the answer. Maybe I should have been playing Jace, or maybe you should have been playing Fall from Favor.
Maybe. I didn't... honestly, Fall from Favor did not cross my mind. Maybe that would have been good.
Yeah. But it's funny though, right? Like we both kind of like identified the same dynamic of the game and like, you know, went on our like janky blue, like bouncy type thing to stop it.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Unless you've got anything else you reckon which really stands about this Nadu list, do you want to talk us through what the modern walks list looks like?
Yeah. So obviously, post CanCon, Nadu got pointed. We've also since pointed Nethergoyf and Psychic Frog, and I think something else that I can't recall.
Well, Natural Order now 0 as well.
Yeah, Natural Order came down, and so like we've kind of changed what we can do. One of the things is like, yeah, Natural Order is pretty good here. I think it Walks is one of the decks that does already want to be playing a bunch of green cards. I think it wants to be playing slightly fewer than Natural Order wants you to play, but you can fudge the numbers a little bit to make it to support it. Kitchell Skimmer helps out there, for example, and maybe wouldn't be great if you weren't playing Natural Order, but
well, yeah, there are different packages here. Like one question I have with the Natural Order Atraxa thing, especially in those historic lists, which had a way bigger points budget and were playing way more like Coiling Oracles and Icefang Codals, like should Natural Order have been in the deck all along?
I think there are times it should have been. I think it is like figuring out which 4-drops you want is interesting, and Atraxa is a really good Natural Order target, but before it was printed, your options were quite a lot worse, and it wasn't printed that long ago, you know. But once it did get printed, I think there were times where it may have been good. I think Jordan played it in 2023.
Yeah, I remember Jordan. I remember a conversation where you were you're telling me about like, oh my god, I've seen this like 5-color walks list and it's playing Orcish Bowmasters and Natural Order. It's making me feel ill.
Yeah.
And that was definitely Jordan. Yeah.
Yeah, part of it was like the mana is just hard, right?
Yeah.
Like, and particularly if you like look at the spells in those decks, you're like playing 2-color 2-drops of every color combination already, and so like playing lands that don't cast those spells is really hard. And for a long time, like Natural Order was pointed, and even though you had all these extra points, your 7th point was still a really good card. You know, like it was competing with space for the One Ring or 4th Eolingus or Minsk and Boo at 1 or whatever it was, and it was just like this would be good, but it doesn't. It stretches the mana a long way to try and cast it, and it doesn't quite do what I want it to do. I think even now, if it went back up to 1, I don't think I would play it.
Yeah, okay.
Despite it feeling like a really natural fit, it's just like I don't think it's better than the 1-drops I could the 1-point cards I could be playing. But it is a nice option to have.
Cool. I mean, look, with that, I've got some questions. One is about something which I see in all of the decks, and another is about like cards which are not included, and I'm really curious why they're not. So one thing I noticed about all of the decks, which I've found, is that Walks decks, both in my experience when I played against them, seem to always be very prepared for Blue Moon. Like even though they're often four color decks, they're often packing a lot of basics, which I find to be, like interesting, because that's not super common. But also, when I've played Blue Moon, I've always found that Walks is a pretty good matchup for Blue Moon because it feels like one of the problems with the Blue Moon decks is always that if your opponent's just like not on non-creatures, or they're exclusively on non-creatures, like it kind of blanks a big half of your deck, or they're a two-color deck and the moons are useless. Whereas Walks, it feels like kind of every part of your interaction is relevant always. Like there are mana dorks for your removal spell, high impact sorceries for your counter spells, a land base which is ripe for mooning. So I guess like my question there is one, is that why there is so much preparation, like with all the basics? And then the follow up is that, is it worth it? Like, should it instead just be a slightly more stable mana base in its own right and just concede that it's not a good matchup?
Yeah. So there's a funny story to leave all the basics is like I can start with it. Four colors decks that don't lose to Blood Moon is a Melbourne special. I want to credit Julian and Isaac for teaching me that lesson when I was the Blue Moon player. And they would play four color Bant and then just very happily play through my Blood Moons and disregard them because they were playing, basics and mana dorks or carpet of flowers or 5 blasts or whatever it was. And they just came to like, and they taught me like you can always beat Blood Moon if you have a plan. Like you can't. It might not be just play basics, but you can figure a combination of sideboard cards and basics and main deck cards to have a coherent plan. And there's just something you can always do. And so like you look at these decks and like this version for example is on Swamp plus Forest, so it can get Abrupt Decay and Assassin's Trophy and Island for its blue blasts, and that's how it's getting out of it. Other versions will be on just Island or whatever, and just leaning on blue blast and Force of Vigor, for example.
Yeah, okay.
But there's always ways out, and it doesn't cost a lot to do that a lot of the time because those cards are good elsewhere if you can figure out which bit falls into your plan. And in terms of like stable mana, I remember talking with Jack Ding when he first started playing the deck. He was like, "You need to make a change. The Plains is terrible. You have to cut it." And it just like I had never thought about cutting the Plains because I needed my Plains to kill the Blood Moon with my Prismatic Ending, my Leyline Binding. And then I looked at the mana, and I realized that the Plains was terrible, and I had to cut it. And then my mana was suddenly better. And so there's like it does come at a cost sometimes for sure. And you're right, the Blue Moon matchup is still bad. Your cards just don't line up well. It's winnable. You need to draw Carpet of Flowers, but it is winnable. But it's not a lot of cost to give you a chance in that matchup, because what you're actually doing is being prepared to beat Blood Moons out of Moonshine and Eclipse,
that makes sense.
And stuff like Goblins. And so because you need to be able to beat these cards anyway, it doesn't hurt to try and have a little bit of plan against Blue Moon as well.
It's interesting, one of the things you've said, which I think might be an interesting insight for just players to get, to think about more generally when they're preparing for Blood Moon, is I guess like unconsciously done the same thing you've done, where it's like, well, it's not just about having basics, it's about having the basics which casts the sideboard card which kills the moon. Like, you always want the Island, not because it casts cantrips or whatever, it's because you can Lore and Revealed for it and it casts Blue Blast. And for me, like, I usually play Control. I'm usually like, well, the other one has to be a Plains because I want to cast the like March of Otherworldly Light or the Prismatic Ending or whatever. So it really is thinking not just about having basics, but having basics which get the thing which kills the moon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, or having enough basics that you can just play through the moon, which is an option for some decks. For some, not for Walks. For Walks, you have to kill it.
Yeah, fair enough. The next kind of like question I had about includes, I'm really surprised that Failure isn't in any of these lists, because it seems just like such an obvious benefits from extra combat steps, is in by itself a Eternal Witness like engine, although I guess like it picks it up at the end of turn, but that's not going to deal break a loop. And and also like well, I guess it naturally combos with things like the Baleful Strix, the like with Ketramos, which you've got in this list as well. Is there a reason which Felio isn't any of this stuff?
Felly is awesome. I think in any list that doesn't have it that could, it was the 61st card
Right.
or the 62nd card. That just like slots are tight. And like I think in this list, for example, I decided that I wanted an extra piece of interaction, and that like I didn't need another threat, and that failure was just a little bit too vulnerable to rely on as a creature, and I would rather have Inquisition of Coastal Lake or Prismatic Ending, whatever that last slot was. But it's just like it's really good. But because you're trying to do so many things, and it's one of the things with actually transition into like the modern builds of walks is there are a lot of things you can be doing that are competing for those extra slots.
Okay.
I'm not playing Worldly Tutor and Metamorphosis Fanatic in this list, which is another really powerful thing to be doing. And so like figuring out which collection of powerful things you want to have your deck do, and then how to support them best is like I think the way that the modern versions of the deck are leaning, and that means maybe you're not doing the Catch-Most thing, maybe you're not doing the Natural Order thing, maybe you're not doing the Neo form thing, or maybe you're not doing the like fair thing even. You're just like, actually I'm doing all of the unfair things and I'm trimming down on Barrogoyf, right? Like
Yeah.
figuring out exactly which way you want to build it is a real consideration both for metagame and playstyle of your own. And for me, like Felia just didn't quite fit because I wanted to interact a little bit more.
Yeah, makes sense. I guess the only other thing I was, again, it's a bit of a bigger question, but on my mind is you've played so much with all of these decks. Like undoubtedly, you've had just a lot of opponents of I imagine like all quality. Like playing these lists in top eights, but also like sometimes even the best of us get like have a bad run in a tournament. What do you think the most common mistake or mistakes that your opponents make are when they encounter a walks list? Like, what's the thing where you're like, oh, here we go again? Like,
Yeah.
where are people vulnerable?
One thing is people, because the deck is weak to the combo is weak to literally every piece of hate possible. People will often board in every piece of sideboard card that interacts with the combo. Particularly if they get comboed game one. If you do a fast combo in game one and kill them on turn 4 with Time Walk, then they're like, oh, I'm getting Time Walk comboed. All the graveyard hate and all my removal and all my counter spells, and then they don't do anything and they kind of crumble under the weight of a single creature because they've got a Rest in Peace and an Ashiok in play and a Flusterstorm in hand. And like so that's one way that people can get got. But the most common thing is people just don't know the lines. That's hard because like there's so many, but a bunch of the time you're in a spot where you can't kill your opponent because the card's missing, or you don't have enough mana, or you know about a piece of interaction they have, and so you like go for part of a combo or a slow combo turn and they leave themselves vulnerable, or they bolt a Spellseeker when you're tapped out that wasn't doing anything because they were terrified of getting killed.
Yeah. Whereas they should be waiting for the ephemerate kind of thing.
Yeah, or they like know that you can't kill them, or they have multiple pieces of interaction in hand and they can tax your mana and kill the actual threats in play because it's not as important. But it can be hard. Like this deck presents a lot of challenges, both for the pilot and for the opponent, as to like exactly what matters in any given game.
As the resident overboarder in the podcast, how can you tell if you're overboarding? Like, should you just pick one angle and just that be the angle of attack, or like what are the markers that you should be looking for when sideboarding against walks?
I think I like to do is figure out which side of the deck you're weak to. Like, if we play a totally fair game, like, does your deck win? And, followed by, like, if I just tried my hardest to combo you, do you have enough interaction to beat that? And if you're like, actually, I can't interact with the combo at all, on face up, you're like, probably start reaching for some of those hate cards. You know, if you're red white aggro, like, maybe you do want to reach for a Rest in Peace. Whereas if you're Grixis, is like you actually like, I'm not gonna combo Grixis ever, right? That's probably not happening. Or if it is, it's because the game is basically over anyway. And so they don't need to be reaching for all these cards, unless they're good anyway. But you know, you're probably not bringing in Leyline of the Void. You might want Nihil Spellbomb, and instead focus on like making sure that you're not getting beaten down by Grist and Natural Order for Atraxa, and the cards that punish you there.
Are the rule of law effects, by which I mean, you know, cards like Archon of
Yeah.
Meria, Deafening Silence, High Noon, do you reckon those are any good against walks, or is it a waste of time?
They stop you comboing. They don't do anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
They do stop you comboing.
So you've got to be very confident that the fair game is yours to put these in your deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of decks where that's true. You know, if you're on Turbo Initiative, Archon's probably awesome for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. If I'd have interest, if there was like an 8-point gamer who really wanted to play like a time walk thing, is there like a world where you can play like time warps with like the 5-mana one, or is it just like is it missing too much?
Maybe. I think you're better off leaning on Arms Chant to try it.
Oh, okay, right.
But it's hard because maybe even both. You can't shoot it for Time Warp with Spellseeker. And that's like where the combo really it really leans into being able to do that to set up your 1-card combo. Arms Chant lets you set up that combo, but it is vulnerable to your opponent drawing an instantly removal spell.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard as well.
So for the context, Arms Chant, it's like white with a kicker, so it's basically double white. They don't get a combat step and they don't get to cast any spells, right? Like it's silence and fog. Yeah. So
silence and no combat. We have to cast it in their upkeep, so they can respond to it with spells. And so it's not anywhere near as good a lock. But also you get to draw a card every turn as well. So like some amount of the time you only need like 4 or 5 of those before you can just kill them in combat. And you get to play a whole heap of the good fair cards that you can't play if you're playing 5 points on time.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
and also you're 8 points, so you've got 6 points to play with.
Yeah. So like, is there a world where that's playable? Absolutely. I think you need to be able to kill your opponent very quickly once you start trying to do the thing.
Yeah.
And maybe all that is that you know, do your combo for a little bit and then decide that actually, you know, you've been silenced twice and now I'm gonna get my Spellseeker and get 4th Elingus and attack for 15.
Right. Yeah.
And like that might be your lethal line. It's like not something I've really looked at. I tried playing it once or twice and just like doing the straight swap and didn't like it. But if you want to iterate and test, there's a good chance that it's there. And even if you don't have a combo, Spellseeker plus Eternal Witness plus Ephemerate is just very powerful. And getting an infinite regrowth every turn, like a free regrowth buyback every turn, is really, really strong. And you don't. There's a Time Walk secret is you can do that loop with any random card, and it's probably good enough. You know, if you just cast Swords to Plowshares every turn, you're probably going to win that game.
Well, I was just thinking, even an empty board, if you just did that with Counterspell every game, it's like it's like if your opponent's only drawing 1 card per turn, like that's basically over as well. Like
and you can do this, and you can set up Spellseeker like, the turn that they don't actually do anything, instead of getting a regrowth, you get a Spellseeker for another piece of interaction. You can just like set up a hand they can't possibly beat.
Michael, you're making me want to put this in a control deck now. I'm just thinking maybe I should just have like my 4-color control deck, but make it green and just like, rebuy Counterspell every turn. It'll be like another cryptic command lock.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, Eternal Command was the thing people tried in Modern, and Ephemerate is way better at it than Eighth of Violent Cryptic Command is.
I do like the Arms Chant idea as well, though, because you're right. Like, if you just, like, the turn you draw the 4th Elingus, you just Arms Chant on your turn, and then just 4th them, like, as a full, like, fireball with no, like, not a care in the world.
It's like, it's not embarrassing. I think last time I tried it was before 4th Elingus got printed, and having access to that as an option through that loop helps.
This is the open challenge to the community. Brew up the 8-point Arms Chant, like, Time Warps deck do well with it, and we can bring you on the podcast and have the walks with 3 asterisks, which,
Yeah, please do. It'd be sick.
All right, Lime, do you have anything to add / close on?
I do have 3 quick questions for you, Michael, if you're ready.
Sure.
The first one is, even though you're a committee member, you personally, we have a contractual obligation to ask this. Should mental misstep be 1 point or 0 points?
1 asterisk. I think it should be 1. I think I was on record for 0 for a long time. But I think now the format has changed enough that I think it's time to go to 1, just because of how 1-drop centric and tempo centric the format finally is.
We love to hear it. Another convert. The second question is, what is your unpopular opinion for a favorite printing of a card that other people don't like?
Oh, I see. They've just given me new ones, you see, because there's the bonus sheet from Final Fantasy, and
Yeah.
I am an unapologetic fan, and will happily play with my Endwalker Brainstorm until the end of time, which infuriates everyone else.
It absolutely infuriated me. I was looking at some of these Rationals lists. I'm like, let's get ideas. Let's see what's brewing out west. And I'm like, oh, Endwalker. I've never heard this card before. And I click it. It's like it's Brainstorm. It's like, of course it's Brainstorm.
I go out of my way to register Endwalker in my list of a Brainstorm and Moxfield, so no apologies.
Gross. And then the final question is, what are like a card or cards on the points list that people are sleeping on right now?
Dreadhorde Arcanist. I played that. People keep telling me it's bad, or Netherglyphs, depending if you want an alternative option. But I played Dreadhorde Arcanist on Saturday on the thesis that the card's actually really good and people don't play it. And I think I played it over Force of Will, actually.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of commitment.
Yeah, so I was playing Lurrus. I played it Tamio, Ragavan, Frog, and Dreadhorde Arcanist. Although Force is arguably better than any of them, but Dreadhorde I think really wanted to play, was really good. I think it single-handedly won me like 3 or 4 games, where I just like played a Thoughtseize, played Dreadhorde Arcanist, like it didn't die, and then it just like cast 3 spells and the game ended.
Yeah. It is it's funny, like what all those cards have in common is that they're all like the 1/2 drops that snowball.
Yeah.
And like the Dreadhorde as well. I don't know if people are on this tech, but since the printing of Arena of Glory, in my opinion, that card's stocks have gone way up. Like you can just like Thoughtseize, then turn to Arena Thoughtseize. Like granted you need Badlands, but that's really powerful. Like there's not a huge amount of decks which are going to be able to come back from that. Because from then on in, the removal's gone. Like every turn, it's just like, oh, okay, cool, like Ponder, attack, Ponder, or whatever. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, Dreadhorde, you get the mana back, which is like, that's the thing. It's like all these other cards give you value. Dreadhorde gives you value and a Lotus Petal every turn. That's so good. But yeah, the theory of the deck was like, I just want to cast the maximum number of 1 and 2 drops that snowball and all the interaction. And it kind of did that. It was imperfect. You played it with no testing, but it did the thing sometimes.
Well, look, next time, Michael, do 4 colors and add Felia to that list. I've been trying it. It's a secret snowballer. The pup. It snowballs too. It needs a bit of help. It needs a Powerful Strix or an Arkham's Astrolabe, but fortunately those cards are both good. So.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, I have to admit, I think I was leaning on playing fewer snowballers because I was having tension of trying to play 2 drops and 2 mana interaction, and it didn't work out.
Right.
But I'm back to the drawing board with that one. But it was sweet.
Well, Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, mate. Thanks for joining and giving us the OG walks and all of the iterations over time. And actually, one of the things which I really like about the explorations, these lists, is that we want the podcast to get people thinking about maybe I could play that. And I feel like there's been so many like moments for brewers, to just think, oh, that actually maybe I could do that. And it's so clearly a deck which, as you've said, there are angles. There are so many angles to explore. You could have, 5. You could have a dozen different Time Walk decks show up, and they could all be really meaningfully different. And so hopefully that inspires some people in the community to get brewing. And guys, just another reminder, that may have been the season finale of, the 7-point cast for season 2, but we will be back. So like, subscribe. If you're interested in joining us for season 3, we are looking for new guests. We want to start getting some new episodes out as soon as possible. It might be a week or 2 break, But we hope to, get back off our feet as soon as we can. You can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Spotify, and if you're on YouTube, you can have a look at the PowerPoints and some of the cards we're talking about. Thank you guys for being such a great audience, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time.